Right, comrade, do you believe that the court acted on its power on that case yesterday at the Federal High Court?
Ordinarily, you see, if it is not, we will never, as citizens, be against court acting within the jurisdiction of its authority. No. If the court was within the jurisdiction of its power, it wouldn't have been a problem to the masses. But here, the court is not even within the jurisdiction of its authority. That's the problem we first had. Now, a bench warrant was issued on Omoyele Sowore for not appearing on the 16th of June 2026. However, this is the reality and the real position of the case. The same APC Umar was the one who adjourned the case from the last hearing, that was before the June 12th, from the last hearing to June 15th. Now, you adjourned the case to June 15th. The defendant came to court. As of 8:30, I was in the court. The defendants were in the court, and quite a number of people were also in the courtroom, awaiting the judge who is presiding over the case, who is hearing that case. But at the end of the day, as at past 12 noon, the judge didn't show up. All we could see was one of the registrars come to say the judge will no longer be available, so therefore everyone should go home. Expecting communication back to the defendant, so for him to know when next to appear in court. However, before the defendant left the court, he wrote a letter to the judge, to the registrar of the court, well submitted and well documented on that very day, citing different dates he will not be available, and also quoting possible dates he will be available. In addition to this, requesting a possible date that will be convenient also with the court, stating that he would be available on the response of the court. Now, if we want to talk about the procedures here, he has followed the first stage of the procedure, awaiting reply. When you write to a court, you wait for response, since the judge didn't hear the case on the 15th of June. So, the defendant, Omoyele Sowore, is waiting for a response back that must be communicated back, where a judicial system works thoroughly and not biasly. But in this sense, on the 16th, unknown to the defendant, unknown to anyone, the judge came to court, heard a case in the absence of the defendant that is not even aware that the case will be heard on the 16th, and you issued a bench warrant. That is not our judiciary system again. That is political.
Was there a reference to the day that the court, that is the judge, did not sit? Was there a reference to it the following the 16th day that the court sat?
There was no reference to it. There was no prior notice to that effect as well. Neither was Omoyele Sowore written to. The letter as written by Omoyele Sowore on the 15th, as the judge didn't sit to hear the case, which the judge was the one who chose that date. The letter was also published on practically every social media. We can all see that. But here in question is what we're supposed to even be looking at. As the judge also respects the judicial system and the court to which, the institution to which he represents. No. You didn't show face. No excuse to that effect. No response to that effect. Then you came on the 16th and issued a bench warrant. I'm proud before this date, before 16th, which the APC judge issued a bench warrant, he has constantly wanted to enforce that Omoyele Sowore entered defense immediately. Why are you so concerned about the defendants entering into the defense? That's another angle we should look at it. Why are you so concerned about not recusing yourself? Now, in a judicial system that works, a court is an independent body that is expected not to be biased. But wherefore a defendant feels the judge hearing his case is already biased on that case, every defendant, every citizen has the right to request the judge to request himself, meaning to remove himself from the case. Then the Attorney General of Federation will now assign a new judge on that case in order for fair hearing and accountability. But there is no fair hearing, there is no accountability here, because Justice Umar, the APC judge, is compromised. We can no longer believe in any judgment that comes from Justice Umar in this sense. Because if you refuse to request yourself, why are you so interested in this case? Why are you so particular about this case? Why are you so bent that you must hear this case? And at the end of the day, you got what you wanted. You came. This was politics. This was a game. You didn't come on the 15th. You came back on the, you didn't pass any information to that effect. You came on the 16th. Now to issue a bench warrant. The essence for this is to disqualify our presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, Comrade Omoyele Sowore, from running for this presidential seat for 2027. The essence was to disqualify him. That was why you saw the shenanigans of the lawlessness of the DSS yesterday. In a judicial system that works, a judge, now let's now look at a judgment of the judge. A court has heard a case and had given its verdict that the defendants be remanded in Kuje prison. Sitting quietly and waiting for that document to be signed so that he can go quietly and peacefully, whom of which has carried his prison bag and has showed it to the entire masses and was within the confines of the court gallery, which means that Omoyele Sowore, as at the time the DSS adopted and kidnapped him, he was a court property. When a defendant is within the confines and the jurisdiction of the court premises, he is not the property of any law enforcement agency. He is the property of the court as of that moment. And only the court can say otherwise. And the judgment has been passed. I was live in the courtroom yesterday. You saw me standing there. At first, I noticed one of the DSS officers on suit was monitoring Omoyele Sowore. I asked him, why are you monitoring this man? Is he a criminal? He is not a criminal. The real criminal you're supposed to go after, Reno Mokiri, you awarded him with ambassadorship. Why are you monitoring this man who is quietly sitting on his phone? Little did we know. He stood up. Omoyele Sowore stood up. Then the DSS hijacked and adopted him at gunpoint. Omoyele Sowore was embarrassingly adopted right in the courtroom. This shenanigans and foolishness happened in 2019. The DSS will never respect the court order. Neither will they ever respect court proceedings. Never ever. But whenever a citizen or a TikTok content creator speaks to at any point they are, you see government go against them. Right at the courtroom, you saw how the DSS were pointing guns right in the courtroom at the innocent citizens and masses. Is that supposed to be in a judicial system that does not support criminality? But the judicial system supports criminality of the highest order. If this got the entire masses furious, that at that point, the entire people say no to that injustice. Because Omoyele Sowore has not been treated fairly on this case. That was why you saw all that played out yesterday. Both court gates were shut down, refusing and demanding that the court procedures be duly followed, and the DSS recuse and remove themselves with immediate effect to avoid revolution, because revolution almost took place yesterday, and that revolution is still going to happen. I always tell people, the only better and the only way to a successful governance in Nigeria can only be by revolution. Until revolution takes place, Nigeria can never be better. Because these so-called recycled evil politicians most especially the Affliction Poverty Congress, APC, has refused to remove themselves from the cause of democracy and from the cause of this country. Because what we have seen that had played out yesterday at the court is not justice, and it is also a shame and a disgrace on the democracy that we clamor for. So there is no democracy. All we have currently today in Nigeria is demonstration of craziness. The demonstration of craziness of the highest order. If it were not demonstration of craziness of the highest order, what rights would the DSS ask to adopt Omoyele Sowore right in the courtroom after the judge has issued out and has pronounced his judgment that if he be remanded in Kuje Correctional Center? What rights do they have? You should know what they wanted to do was just one thing: oppress the people who speaks against bad governance, oppress the people who speak against bad economy, oppress the people who speak against insecurity in Nigeria. The lives of people, if you look at the video, go to social media, look at the number of DSS that were live in the courtroom, at the court gallery. If you have the same number of DSS in Sambisa, in Oyo State Bush, to go and claim that those children in Ogbomoso and other kidnapped citizens back, Nigeria will be a better place. But shame on our judicial system, and shame on this Affliction Poverty Congress. And it is high time Nigeria is saying no. And the no is going to be a no that we stand with. Nigeria is no longer scared of death, because the only way to get Nigeria back from these terrible people is by sacrifice.